Forward to the cloud. And start letting folks in. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. People are connecting with their audio, or trying to. Give them another minute or so. And people will be leaving and coming back in when we need to, so. All right, let's get started. Let me just switch my view to speaker view. Good afternoon, everybody. I think everybody knows who I am, Jim Carney of Journalism and Media Studies. Welcome to this masterclass session on social media and social media marketing and promotion. Once again, I'll let everybody know we are recording the session. So you'll be able to go back and check the content later on to review it. In addition to that, the other students who were not able to be with us this afternoon will be able to check it out. The chat is open, so if you do have questions as we go along, feel free to jump into the chat and ask any questions that you may have of our guests. It's going to be a panel discussion, but I will explain that by introducing Melissa Castillo-Planas from the English department, who is coordinating this session, and I will cede the floor to her.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Melissa Castillo-Planas. I'm an assistant professor in English, and I am part of the MOME project overseeing the social media intern. Hi, Denia. How are you?
Hi, hello.
Good. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
So take notes so we can figure out what to do later. So we are here with three amazing panelists to talk about social media marketing and promotion, and to help us think about how we want to do that for our project, right? Of course, that's an area that me and Denny are working on, but we welcome any ideas as well over the course of the project from the entire team. And so I hope that this is helpful in thinking about the project as a whole. I'm really excited about our three panelists. They're all incredibly accomplished professionals, but also have slightly different points of view and experience, so they can give us a wider idea of the range of thinking that goes into social media promotion marketing, right? So in no order whatsoever, except that this is what I printed out, right? Let's start with Yara Rosenthal. So as the social media communication specialist for the Office of Communications and Marketing at Lehman, Yara Rosenthal has more than 8 years of experience working in social media strategy and development and more than 16 years in communications. In her role, she leads the strategic development and implementation of campaigns while maintaining the overall aesthetic of the college's social media presence. One of the highlights of her career at Lehman is the development of a social media internship program where she grooms students interested in pursuing careers in the field. Yara earned her bachelor's degree in English at Lehman College. Yay, Lehman College English. That's so cool. She began her career as a college assistant in the Office of Media Relations, where she honed her storytelling and photography skills. Today, she plays a key role in advancing the college's narrative through its various mediums. Thank you so much for being here. And then oh yeah, in no particular order is Robert Kadar. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
That's fine. Everyone pronounces it that way, which is totally fine. It's Kadar, but yeah, I like Kadar too.
I should have asked you beforehand. That's a tip to students. Ask people beforehand. Robert Kadar is the head of marketing at CUNY Central. He has more than 10 years of experience in marketing for higher education and diverse advertising clients. During his spare time, he founded one of the most influential economics blogs, evonomics.com, which we can put in the chat so you can check it out, which receives 100,000 readers a month, 30,000 email subscribers, and over 130,000 Facebook followers. Robert is an expert in digital advertising, brand building, and audience growth. He applies a scientific approach to advertising and budget optimization. And then last but not least, we have George Torres, who is an award-winning bilingual social media cultural consultant who in the late 90s captured attention on the internet with his personal mission statement of connecting Latinos to their culture. George has always drawn inspiration from his personal connections to his cultural heritage. Having been raised alternately between New York and Puerto Rico, he is the living embodiment of the Nuyorican experience, earning his nickname Urban Jibaro. George's creative vision is the blueprint for Brooklyn-based Sofrito Media Group and its growing portfolio of new media products and services. He has almost 20 years of experience developing branded projects that appeal to the Latino Hispanic segment. These include the longest running online blog, Sofrito for Your Soul, Radio Capicu, as well as Capicu Poetry and Cultural Showcase, a partnership that develops and produces live cultural events. And most recently, it's been so cool to watch you, take on this new role in community engagement and grassroots called Nuestro Ideal to create sustainable farms, build capacity with local organizations, and spark entrepreneurship initiatives on the island of Puerto Rico in direct response to the Hurricane Maria crisis. And I'm excited to learn about this new forthcoming platform that you have, Siembra Academy, and that maybe that's something you can share with us, right? So now that we know who our speakers are, I just want to start by inviting them to briefly each talk about their career trajectories, right? So what drew you to social media, digital marketing, communications, advertising, in this kind of frame more generally? What did you study, right? We know Yara studied English, but I'm interested in, what you others studied. Did you do any internships? How did you get in your foot in the door, right? That's the toughest thing out of college, right? Is how do you get in there? Anyone can start, whoever wants to jump in first.
I'm glad to start. First, I want to thank everyone for allowing me to be a part of this conversation, and I'm excited to learn more a bit about everyone, and also get your feedback after I present some of the stuff that I have. But so let's jump into this great question. How did I get where I am today? So for me, one, I studied at SUNY Binghamton. I'm another state public school student, and I'm really proud of it. But I studied history and evolutionary biology as an undergraduate. So I took a non-traditional route to where I am today in marketing, I guess you'd say that. After college, I was excited about making science more accessible to a general audience, learning ways and to show off like this new exciting research that I've learned about, and letting more people know about how important it is. And I started a scientific magazine initially. And this was in the early days of I guess it's the early days of when a lot of publishers were using Facebook to try to build audiences. And I was super excited about it because I was like, all right, if I just build a great online website, get some great content, build a Facebook page, my site's going to be huge. It's going to take off. Everyone's going to start reading this site. Little did I know at the time that was just not the right approach. The whole approach of being if you build it, they'll come. That's not true. People will not just come. There's a lot of work that goes into building audiences and getting readership. So I started building a website for an organization that I was working for out of college. I had all of these failures in terms of readership and followers on Facebook and other places. But I was always interested in public communication, trying to get these ideas out there. And that's when I got into, I got to say, I was lucky enough I needed a job at the time, and I found a job in higher ed marketing at St. John's University in Queens. And I started working with their marketing department, learning what marketing was all about within the higher ed space. And as I started to get into the digital advertising space, I could see at the time that there was this growing movement among many new publications. I guess they were calling them new media at the time, instead of like the traditional media, like the big media platforms like New York Times and CNN and all of those big platforms. New media companies were figuring out ways to use these social media platforms to grow their audience. And I was captured by it because I was like, well, how can I take advantage of what they're doing for my own interest? And so when I was at St. John's, I was learning about digital advertising, and I was seeing how audience growth was happening with a lot of these publications using all of these digital advertising techniques. And I'll talk about those later. But that got me so excited, and then I took that learning from St. John's, I applied it to my own little side project. I started getting into figuring out how to get viral content out there and growing my followers and so on. And I gotta say, like, it's in terms of career trajectory, one thing that I think is kind of interesting is that I love to do something else, and I learned how to become an expert in Facebook advertisement initially, and then I brought it back into my day job, became a really expert in that and how it would fit into the organization's objectives. And so there's something to be said about that kind of like mix of like kind of work that you want to do, or you may find different ways to do things that you want to do, or you might find different things you love, but you still might be able to apply it to some of the things that you do elsewhere. I think that's one of the things that is important to say. So as I became an expert in my passion, I applied to my career, my day job, and I started to just learn how to grow enrollment through advertisement, target future students, get the messages out there to the right audiences, learn a little bit about Photoshop, and learn a little bit about what else? Analytics and tracking and all of those digital things that we use today. Just learn a little bit about it so that I can build expertise at a bigger scale and a bigger picture. And that's kind of how I got into where I am today, which is building a lot of digital advertising campaigns for higher ed, but also applying it to my day work, my passion of love when I'm not doing my day job, which is also a passion of love. I love CUNY.
Awesome.
I can go next if it's okay with George. Or is it Jorge? I can't hear him. Anyway, so I was first hired at Lehman as a web content editor for the Office of Communications. So I was involved in helping with the rollout of new website templates and orchestrating massive website overhauls. It involved working collaboratively with various figures from, and different departments and people from different leadership levels. And at the same time, I was also writing news releases and promoting various events, proofreading, and occasionally writing feature stories about, people that we were profiling. It could be a faculty member, it could be a student or anyone. In addition, I was often asked to take photos at small events or, to take headshots for people that we were profiling. And so I learned how to handle camera. I'm not the best photographer, but I do my best, and it's not terrible. I learned how to write a script. I learned how to interview people. I learned how to write about different topics. I learned how to frame a story so that I could, share it with media and try to sell it in that way. I learned how to pitch an idea. I learned how to frame a photo. I learned how to juggle multiple obligations. So whenever I found myself outgrowing a role, I found ways to shift so that I could refresh my role and my purpose here. I didn't seek out to become a social media professional, but all the things that I did in my previous roles prepared me for what I do. When Lehman College started adopting social media platforms, there was a lot of resistance in the beginning. There was a lot of, who's going to do this, who's going to create this content, who's going to manage all of this stuff. And there was a lot of people at the executive level who really just, didn't understand it. And, honestly, today they still don't understand it, but they're coming around. I don't know this for a fact, but I think that in the beginning, the role of social media manager really fell to a person in the communications office. And so that's how I came to be where I am. And really, it's natural almost for it to be with communications, because we're the ones that were creating the content. We're the ones who understand the messaging and how to put it out there. We really looked at social media as an extension of public relations. And because you're telling the story of the whole institution, we had access to people and various initiatives taking place. So it was a matter of learning how to apply it through this new medium. And that's my story, my origin story.
All right. Well, that's amazing. Nice to meet both of you. You guys can hear me okay, right? Sometimes the screen be glitching, but my name is George Torres. I love Latino culture, and I was very frustrated as a young person because our stories weren't properly told in history books. So I took it upon myself as an undergrad at SUNY Westbury to create a platform where everyday people could tell their stories through poetry, short stories, recipes, music, whatever their form of expression is. And that website started in 1997, so we're on our 24th year now. It's credited with being the first Hispanic website on the internet that addresses culture and identity. And from that website, I went into everything from web design, digital marketing, banner design, just creating assets for companies that wanted to appeal to Latino communities. And it just grew. I've had an opportunity of doing a lot of different things, from work with the National Council of La Raza. I started the first Hispanic organization for social media professionals called Latism, which we had the inaugural conference at Columbia University with a $30 budget and a lot of favors called in. And then I moved on to an organization called Hispanicize, which is the biggest, still is the biggest organization for Hispanics in the media, I would say, because it's bigger. It encompasses journalism, it encompasses marketing, CMOs, and things of that nature. Today, I've transitioned. So I do this because I love it. This is a passion thing for me. It's not about titles for me. I could easily call myself CEO. And for me, CEO would mean Chief Engagement Officer. Nothing more than that. But I really do this because I'm passionate about it, and I like to plant seeds and start projects. So I've started a bunch of nonprofits, a bunch of cultural organizations in New York. But for me, it's the teaching that really kind of drives me. So I work with everything from poets and artists, activists, to Fortune 500 companies when they need somebody to come in a room and tell them something that other marketing people with fancy titles and degrees can't tell them, right? Is how people really think. What Melissa had alluded to earlier is that I'm actually, I've transitioned. My children are grown. And since I don't have to worry so much about making a lot of money to pay for their college, because that's all done with already, I transitioned into a position of just trying to be an elder in the space and really just help people navigate the concept of actually using their narratives to create impact. So I created something called the Siembra Initiative, which was born right after the pandemic took place. I basically was getting emails from people that I worked with in different agencies, and they were telling me about how they lost their job or they got furloughed or laid off or whatever have you. So I created a Facebook group just for them to help them reinvent themselves. And I didn't charge a penny for it. And every single day I would go in there and give them lessons and work on their brand and do Q&As and fireside chats. and every day for 6 months. And a bunch of people have actually launched projects that have taken them to self-sustainability without having to go back to their 9 to 5 or their corporate jobs. So I'm building an academy around that concept. I'm actually offering everything from community groups and other Facebook type groups that, like I did the original group. And I'm also doing some VIP coaching for high level professionals looking to also elevate in their own space. So I guess I'll leave it there for now. There's a lot more. There's a whole lot more.
Yeah, what I'm seeing though amongst these different stories is a lot of, taking your own initiative, right? Often not being afraid to learn new skills, right? Even on the job or as you're creating whatever you're creating. I'm also hearing that writing is important, and I just want to highlight that as a writing
Absolutely.
professor. But yeah, so I think those are already some really, really great lessons across the board. Okay, so now let's move into our next segment, which is to talk about social media campaign, right? Or a general like advertising campaign, right? So I'm just going to ask each of the panelists to discuss how they conceived, executed, and managed a campaign. What goes into a campaign in terms of planning, organizing, and follow through, right? Where do you start? How do you execute this? And what makes a campaign successful? That could be a whole course, I know.
I guess I'll start. So in addition to having my agency and everything, I'm also what they consider what's, I guess the term it coined is influencer, right? I don't like the term, but that's what they call me. I've done a lot of brand sponsorships. I've done a lot of work with different agencies, including the United Nations. I've done stuff for the White House. So I've worked on different campaigns to be able to get ideas across to my community. Just before the pandemic broke, or I'm sorry, after the pandemic broke, I was approached by an agency that I'd done a lot of work with over the last 2 years. They're one of the best agencies, the Exposito and Partners here in New York City, to actually be the spokesperson for their COVID-19 campaign. Now, luckily, I have a lot of trust and a great working relationship with the Exposito, because that project that they offered me, I actually was able to transform that into something completely different. So this is not anybody who actually worked for an agency before, they're going to say this is highly unheard of, but they trusted me enough to do this. As I signed the contract, I actually fell ill with COVID-19 and I ended up hospitalized. Now, me just knowing that, with a pandemic happening, I still wanted to get the bills paid. I was trying to think of different ways that I could actually either delay the project or somehow work it out where my agency and the agency involved still had a hand in it, and we were able to obviously fulfill the ideal for the client. So as I was sick in the hospital bed, I started thinking like, yeah, it would be great if I did a commercial for you guys or did a PSA, but wouldn't it be greater if I got a bunch of my friends to participate and we could actually do something a little bit bigger? So what I did was I got back with the agency. I said, hey, listen, I'm willing to take a pay cut if you could add more money to the budget and we could do a little bit more with this. And without getting into all the boring details, which would be very exciting to somebody who's actually into digital media, and we could talk about it at a different time, we ended up recruiting a bunch of celebrities, a bunch of other community ambassadors in the community to make these PSAs. So we got Luis Guzman, we engaged Fat Joe and his team, and we created a campaign for people to be careful during the holidays, for the Latino community specifically, because everybody was kind of ready to get together for the holidays. So what we did was we created a campaign to actually tell people how they could be careful during the holidays and how to get tested. So it was specifically for health and hospitals. It was for the city of New York. And they trusted us specifically to be able to deliver this message despite the unorthodox approach. Normally, a campaign like this would take months and months of planning, lots of legalese and everything. And the agency just kind of rolled with the punches, and piece by piece, we put it out week by week. And we actually got the whole project done in less than 8 weeks from planning to execution. So very, very unique situation, but again, it's about trust. It's about knowing the brand ambassador or the team that you're engaging. And I think that, all those things were just perfectly aligned for us to be able to get the message out and create a lot of impact, get a lot of people tested. and just get a lot of coverage in terms of media and social buzz, you know?
So kind of like pivoting with, feeling all right to take a turn on what was originally planned, right? And follow, kind of what is needed and how things are developing in some ways.
Well, that too. And then also recognizing that having gone through the system, ironically and not planned, I actually went through the exact same system I was actually championing. So I went through the Health and Hospitals COVID a hotel program, and I went to a Health and Hospitals hospital that actually gave me an experimental treatment that got me back on my feet. So this was like unheard of. Like, everything was so aligned and so perfect, because now I could be a true ambassador. It's one thing to be able to say, hey, I trust these people to do XYZ for me, but there's a whole different situation to say, while I was planning this campaign, this is what happened. And I told that story. Like, so it was like a sneak behind the curtain type of thing, where I was actually telling people what was happening as it was happening, as I'm in the hospital developing this campaign for the city of New York. So it has so many different levels and layers of transparency. And it was actually true to form, because I was actually living it as I was going through it, as I was projecting to my audience. So it was a very unique campaign. I'll probably never see anything like that again, hopefully. but it was definitely one for the books, and we're nominated for an award.
Oh,
I'm not sure if I can say that yet, but yeah, we're kind of nominated for something.
Wonderful. Who would like to share next?
So one of the most exciting and exhausting campaigns that I get to work on every year is commencement. There's a lot of natural excitement that exists around this event, for the students and the families and the staff. So there's a lot that goes into it in trying to make this special for the graduates. So every year we try to go bigger and better. This campaign involves working closely with our multimedia team and other offices around campus. We usually start meeting in January to brainstorm different ideas, videos, photography, graphics, and other engaging materials. Next, I try to identify students that I can profile. So this involves reaching out to the deans and the chairs and everybody that I know who can recommend students. Then I start contacting the students individually, inviting them to be part of the campaign. And I say this specifically because I find that speaking directly with individuals improves the chances of that person working with me than if I were to send like a mass email or even putting out like a request on social. It feels impersonal, and I just find that people tend to ignore it. So right now, the next step would be, setting up the interviews, photography, and then the writing process. And it's probably a good 8-week process. By doing this, I've learned what works and what doesn't work through trial and error. Like, I learned that the less I dress up a photo with graphics and things, the better it performs. I play around with both short and long form narratives because I believe that people do read. And I believe that our audience wants to read these stories because they see themselves reflected in them. And so I can show you some examples of it, or, I don't know if we have time. I know Robert has to go next, but I also wanted to share something else. Another campaign that I launched last year with a student. And the reason I want to mention it is because, like I said, one of the things that I enjoy is this sort of internship program that I developed for the office. And I invite students to come and work with me. And I had one student last year, his name was Kendrick. And I brought him in and I said, listen, this is what I want you to do. I want you to find a way to promote the different services that we have for students on campus. And he worked with a student graphic designer who was also interning in our office. And together they came up with a really great graphic. They came up with a great title called Kendrick Tries. And he had to do everything from developing the script, creating the logo, setting up the interviews. At the time, we had another student who was interning with us who also had a camera and knew how to kind of operate it. And not that she didn't even know how to do, not Photoshop, what's the other oh, I'm forgetting the name of. She had to work with a basic video editing.
Final Cut Pro.
Thank you. She did not use Final Cut Pro because she didn't know how to use it, but she used something more basic, and it actually turned out really nicely. And it gives, I like to empower our students. They may think that I'm like throwing them to the, to the wolves, but they come into my office. They don't all have great writing skills. They don't all have great photography skills, but they come in and I'll start slow. I say, here, take a camera, go outside and snap some pictures. And they look at me like I'm crazy, but I want to see what they come back with. I want to see what gets them excited. And once I see that, then I'm like, okay, now I can work with you on this. And I know that you're a good photographer. You're going to do more of that. You're good at interviewing people. So that's a campaign within a campaign in a way. I'm campaigning to extend this internship program because like I said, it helps our students and empowers them to work in this field, to be able to wear many hats. That's the thing that I want people to take away when they intern with me, is that you're going to have to do lots of different things. You may not be great at all of them, but you're going to figure it out.
Yeah, so I mean, sorry, just what I'm hearing from this, is, right, a social media campaign is so much more than just snapping a picture, right, and putting it on Instagram. There's this whole planning process, right? Then there's the content period where you're, creating the content, in the case of the commencement, right? The, getting the stories, the interviews, the photographs, just contacting people, in the case of George's work, reaching out to these influencers and getting them to do PSAs and then actually filming the PSAs, right? There's all these steps to it. Really kind of using a variety of narratives, right? Short, long form. I guess, it's never too early to start planning, right? To start thinking about, the plan, even though, right, George shows us that it can be condensed. You can speed things up, right? It is possible, but still, it's not an overnight process, right? An 8-week period is considered quick, right? Okay, so Robert, what can you add for us?
Sure. Let me start with some kind of fundamental things that I think are important when it goes into building any kind of campaign. And I think we have to also clarify the difference between a paid campaign, paid advertising campaign, and a non-paid advertising campaign. They're totally separate kind of objectives, and they rely kind of on different strategies and so on. But in terms of fundamentals, I think it's always important when you go work for another company or when you're working with an organization to think about how the work that you do fits into the overall objective of your organization. And what I mean by that is in marketing, for example, we have a lot of creative, talented people in-house. We have web designers, we have videographers, and we have graphic designers who do Photoshop. A lot of the stuff that can be done perhaps shouldn't be done because there's an objective of the organization, and it's kind of simple if you think about it. For marketing, we serve as the service vehicle arm of the areas where the organization brings in revenue. It brings in money through attracting more students. It brings in money through fundraising, donation campaigns with alumni. And with other organizations, whether it's a for-profit or nonprofit that you end up working with, at the end of the day, everyone's trying to keep their lights on and keep the party going. So I think oftentimes we forget that big picture when we dive into campaigns. And as a marketing director, it's kind of my job, my priority to think about things that we should do and shouldn't do. And oftentimes it's things that we shouldn't do that is where I come in to think about that. Now, so a specific campaign. So oftentimes it starts with the heads of an organization telling you what kind of ideas they have or what things need to be done. For marketing purposes, there's been I'll just give you the CUNY rundown. Right now, and during the pandemic, we're seeing a drop in enrollment from particularly among the two-year colleges across CUNY. It's not too surprising given that we're all studying online and it's it's a tough environment for many students. We're seeing particularly low enrollment among the Hispanic audiences and African-American audiences, a drop in enrollment compared to last year. The four-year colleges are doing okay. They're staying kind of at a even level compared to previous years. So there you go. There's an issue that needs to be resolved. We want to communicate the value of education, a two-year degree at this time period, even though it's a tough time period and we know, but there's so much things that students can take advantage of at CUNY, and we want them to know. And we don't think all of the potential students are getting that message. So how do we get in front of it? So then the big picture that I would start with is, where is your audience located? Like, who is your audience and where are they located? And how do you get in front of them? So I want to say it's good to be data driven. You have to understand a little bit more about like, where you should spend your time and energy, because that's what's extremely valuable for the organization, is how you focus your time and energy on projects. So we know, for example, that most of our audiences are highly engaged. Our younger audiences, especially ones going to two-year degrees, are on Instagram and are on things like Snapchat and YouTube, as opposed to like Facebook, which we see older audiences less engaged in something like a two-year degree program. So then, all right, now we know where we're going to spend our time and our energy and our budget, because budget is always limited. You don't have endless amount of money to spend. So we got to be very, very focused on how to spend that money. So when devising this campaign, it's often a collaboration between not just your department, but also other departments. So we work across departments with enrollment. Those people are just in charge of understanding the audience that we're trying to get in front of. So they have so much rich data and information about current students, alumni, and future students, that someone like a marketer whose job it is to get in front of people, they need to know that audience information to do the job right. So we collaborated with enrollment management department. We've talked to many students just to get feedback as to what's happening. Why do you think college enrollment is going down? What are some of the challenges that they're facing, and what things could CUNY offer to those students to make it more attractive to come to your college? And once we started developing this kind of relationship with students and getting a little bit more understanding what's happening, we can start crafting messages that are based on reality of why CUNY does support some of the things that they think may not actually exist at CUNY. So for example, one of the comments that we kept on hearing about from students was, I don't know if it's going to be affordable for me and my family if I go to college. I don't know what kind of financial aid I would get or support. Which is crazy, because CUNY is like the most affordable school in the state and probably one of the most affordable schools in the nation. And there's so much available financial aid for folks. Then there was the challenges of like online education, totally understandable. And there we had to just talk to some of the college students in two-year programs currently and we just had to ask them, what are some of your challenges and how are you dealing with it? And we actually asked them to create videos, short videos of themselves talking about it, that we could then advertise to those future students. And they were completely honest about the reality of online education, but they also explained that there's opportunities there that you often don't see. So we got great video content from them. Let me just show you the landing page we eventually landed on. We created with a bunch of people and in-house staff. Let me just see if I can pull it up pretty quickly for you. And you kind of can see where everything went with this campaign. So if you go to cuny.edu/2-year, it's our most recent campaign. One of the other messages we heard from students was really focusing on like career outcomes. They didn't want to come back to college because they weren't sure what are the career opportunities after you graduate with a 2-year degree. A lot of students think there's not much opportunity, that you have to go to a 4-year college in order to land a good job. And that's not necessarily true. There's so many opportunities out there for 2-year degree students to get good jobs. And so we wanted to highlight those messages. So as I said, we learned from the students, we figured out the messaging about affordability, about career opportunity and jobs that are out there for people. We told student stories too, that really I think connects with a lot of other future students because they want to see what students have to say. So here are some videos that we created for our students. We talked about the jobs that you can actually get with a 2-year degree. That was something, and we wanted to talk to them more about some of the support services that we offer at CUNY, like Seek and ASAP, which actually is so important to helping you graduate on time. It gives you also financial aid, more financial aid and academic support. And that was something that we picked up from students too. That was a concern that they had, that they felt they weren't maybe as prepared to go into college at the moment. So I guess what I'm trying to say is we listened to the students, we told their messages, and we created something that I think is important, is an important resource, not just some kind of flashy advertisement that often people want to do. Is like, I want to just show off all of these like flashy images and cool things. We really thought that we could offer them like the information that they wanted. And so that's part of the advertisement campaign too. Yeah, and you can go to the page itself and you could see how it looks. And we've been promoting it for a while now. The final thing I want to say about that is in terms of success. How do you measure success? That's always going to be dependent on, let me just stop sharing my screen. That's always going to be dependent on like what the objective is of each and every campaign that you launch. And there you're going to see that there's many different kinds of metrics of success. So for something like maybe a video campaign, maybe the goal is just to have so many people see your video. And that's one metric of useful data. Let's say to say, hey, 10,000 people saw this. Okay, great. That's your objective. There's another objective, which is, hey, how many people saw the video and then took a specific action? Did they like go to your website? Did they buy your product or something like that? And that's another important metric that you might want to think about in terms of success. What I guess I'm trying to say is that there's many things you can argue as being successful. And I think at the end of the day, it's kind of, you have to determine what the most important metric for your organization is, and kind of create ways to figure out how to achieve that metric. And I think for us at CUNY right now, there's this thing called a marketing funnel. That just means that every single stage of interaction that you have with a future customer, future whatever product you're selling, are you actually bringing them down farther down that funnel to the last important metric that you think that you agree on, which is like, did they actually come to your school? Did they graduate? You can measure all of those things. So we try to track all of that through our advertising as much as possible to see the money we spend on advertising have an effect for the organization, and how do we know if it did? And so I'm always thinking about that. Did they click? Did they go to our website? Did they hit the apply button? Did they eventually apply, fill out an application, and did they enroll? And that's just a funnel that you can use for any kind of business that you are involved in. Thinking about the different steps and interactions of your customers. That's all I want to say.
Thank you so much. So I learned so much from that, but definitely like audience research, right? You know, George was, you know, emphasizing that as well in the chat as you were speaking. So we know that's very important. Yara actually had a question for you that I was wondering if you wouldn't mind tackling while she's still here. Because I know you have to leave at 3. I'm going to make you talk one more time before you leave, and then we'll make sure that you're away on time. But she asks, what is your advice for working without a budget? What would you recommend focusing on if you're limited in personnel and funds?
That's a great question. So for social media, one of the things that, I mean, the thing about social media is it's harder and harder every day to get in front of your audiences and build a following, because there's every day another Facebook page is created, millions of Facebook pages are created. So you're competing in that same space with like every single person who has a page, and everyone's eyeballs are limited, right? Or attention is limited to only a small amount of information that they get each and every day. So what does that mean? Okay, so what does that mean for building a following? I think there's a lot of like, I would say there's a lot of like tactics that you can use to build followers. One is like, if you have friends and family, for example, that you can invite them to like your Facebook page or your Twitter page or so on. And that is important because all of these platforms are based on networks. If you can reach out to a small subset of people, and those people then end up sharing that content from you, they are sharing it with maybe 100, 200, or 300 people. And then those people can become followers to your social media page as well. There's things like asking friends who have followers to share your content and to like your page. Finding influencers, as George was talking about, to share content from you. If you have connections with influencers, those are extremely important kinds of things. There's also writing content, like the SEO route, right? If you write a lot of content on a blog or something, the chances of someone finding it are higher. And then they might share it to their, social networks and so on. So there's a lot of non-paid content strategies out there. You can Google them, and I would just say those are important, very, very important. It's a lot of, I would say it's a lot more work to get in front of audiences that way than paid advertisement, because many of the social media platforms are becoming more and more I call it pay to play. So it's like they want you to spend money to reach the audiences that you want to reach. And oftentimes it's you want to have a great non-paid strategy combined with a paid strategy, and those end up often feeding off of each other. So I'll give you an example. With we've noticed that when we spend money through Facebook or Instagram or so on, our non-paid content gets more exposure because the paid content is getting a lot more engagement, and that engagement feeds into Facebook's algorithm, which then says that this non-paid content should probably get more exposure because we've been seeing a lot of engagement off of the paid content. So there's this like these games and tricks and things to play with, and it's always good to know how those things work in order to expand the reach of your content to broader audiences.
Yeah, it seems tough. I don't know, maybe we can help encourage more students to follow, for example, Lehman's social media. I follow it, and that's where I find all the opportunities for students is on the Instagram page. There's so much great information there. Okay, so let's turn to our last segment, and I'm going to throw it right to Yara so she can answer before she has to take off. So social media careers today, how has social media changed and where is it going? What is the effect of new technology? How do you keep up in an ever evolving landscape? Do you have any advice for students interested in this career in terms of any specific, educational background, or even not even educational background, but now I'm thinking more broadly of, certificates or certain types of programs that, are needed, at this point?
Mhm. I think that the way social media has changed over time is that I think it's it's um, it's all in the hands of the influencers. It's those people who can carry that message to their networks, and to when you find somebody who who connects with your product and they're willing to speak on it, that does wonders for organizations, because I think it's very hard for a company to be a person on social media. Because otherwise it just becomes, oh, go to this event or come to this or buy this ticket. But if you have somebody who says, oh, I went to this concert, it was fantastic, I got my ticket through whatever, I don't know, if they can speak well about a company and maybe their customer service, that draws more, I think, users to that product. And I think for companies, it's about harnessing that. It's about developing those relationships. Continue to do what you're doing in terms of, if you have a good marketing plan and you're right on target with your messaging, and you're, responding to your client, to your customers online, and you're showing people that you're a good faith person, then, getting that influencer will only help things out even more. I think that more people on the executive level are starting to pay attention to what social media can do for them. We still need to help them along. Technology, I don't know that I can speak as much to that, but I will say that what I think that students should focus on in terms of degrees and things like that, or certificates, is what Robert does, getting those understanding metrics, understanding analytics, so that when you can use it to your advantage. So when you go to your leadership and you say, I can tell you that this campaign will resonate with this target audience. This is how we're going to target them. And then they will listen to you if you can show them in hard copy what you can do for them. But if you're just going to them saying, oh, well, I just got 10,000, 10 million reach, or whatever it is, whatever the reach is, whatever you're counting as your metric, they don't understand that. They understand numbers. They understand that, there's more people applying to your program, right? Then that's what they get. So I think that being able to understand those numbers, being able to understand how you can target your audience, I think that, and knowing how to present that to your leadership so that they can come back and support you with the resources that you need so you can do your job.
Yeah, I think that's important in all fields, right? How do you communicate what you're doing to someone outside the field in a way that's that is like powerful to them, right? Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And then George or Robert.
Wait, I'm sorry, Melissa. Sorry to cut you off. Before she leaves, I have a question for. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing her name. Yar.
It's actually pronounced Jayada.
Jayada. Okay. Hi, Jayada. Hi. So I heard that you said that you have an internships, and when being a part of your internships, you have your students do multiple things. Like, they're not limited to one job. So like, as for me, I've been doing a lot of internships. Like, I've been doing a fashion assistant, I've been doing animating, and I've also worked with Lehman College being a social media specialist for the Lehman Goals Instagram. But I was saying, like moving forward, how do you like what's your advice to someone that wants to do all those things but is kind of lost in the fact that, like, how do I put this? Like, me, I want to be a person that does the visual effects in movies, but I'm stuck in like this other type of industry within like my major, you know what I mean? Like, I'm doing social media and all this stuff, but what I really want to be doing is visual effects. Like, and I'm kind of stuck there. Like, I don't know where, like, how to move on from there.
Are you currently in an internship? Or
yeah.
Okay. You know what?
Not for that exactly.
Okay. No, but I think that it's kind of like, I'm just going to kind of echo what Robert said, which is, you you may find yourself in a position where you don't get to use those skill sets, but you can still develop them on your own, and you can bring them to your organization and say, look, this is what I can do for you. If that's allowed, if there's that flexibility, you can kind of show people what you can do. And then once they see that, then you're going to be given more latitude or more opportunities. But I think it's about continuing to do that thing that makes you excited and developing that, even if it's on your own, and then being able to share it in a professional way when you're ready.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I do have to go because I have to pick up my daughter.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.
I just wanted to add that
Hi.
Shakia, right? Or how I'm pronouncing that wrong.
Shike.
I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do. No, but I think the point is like, what I realized over time is that you have to be a little bit of adaptive. You have to kind of think like, how can you maybe find other ways to do what you want to do, whether it's working in a like Yura said, Jahia said that you can work within an organization and offer your skill set to them. I mean, I didn't actually know that. I got lucky because digital marketing and data analytics and all of that stuff was becoming more of a thing over time. And I was just working on it myself and learning how to do it, how to do all of this. And then I was just like, oh, everyone wants this. Everyone's looking for this kind of thing now. That's great. Here we go. Let's try to apply it. And I think you'll find after you just explore more and figure out new ways to work within organizations you work with, you'll find ways to use that thing that you want to do. You want to apply that thing you want to apply.
Yeah, that's why I'm actually doing an internship, because like I know visual effects has to do with green screen. It has to do with, making sure you're able to do, like things like on After Effects and stuff like that. So I've been going from like 3D objects through animations, taking it into text animation using After Effects, Adobe Premiere. So I get what you're saying, like trying to acquire all those skills in different areas. So when you, I guess, do that one job that you want, you already have like a knowledge of it, I'm guessing. But I don't know, I just find it hard because I've been trying to apply for other internships in that industry of what I want to do, but it's like they want like 16 years of experience, and I'm like,
I would say oftentimes like getting the job you want is a numbers game. In the world we live in, there's so many people who have great experience and there's so many people who have almost equal level of talent, but there's so many of them and there's so few jobs that one of the things that I always recommend is just keep applying as many places as possible for internships, for jobs, and so on. It's tough to do that kind of stuff, but that's just the reality in many cases. Is like you want to increase the chances of luck happening, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Thank you.
If I may, Melissa, I want to answer the question that you originally posed to the panel and address Shakai.
Yeah,
Okay.
Shike.
Okay, at the same time, okay? So first advice I'm going to give you is a little old school, so I'm gonna definitely show my little graphics on how old school I'm gonna be right now, right? Is dress for the job that you want, right? I love graphics too, by the way, so that's why I resonate with what you're talking about. I think there's a lot of power in practitionership, right? The reason why I'm successful is not because I got any fancy degree. It's not because I studied under somebody famous or whatever. I wasn't afraid to be first, and I wasn't afraid to experiment. And you're probably in that space as well, right? As far as becoming an influencer in your space and trying to get hired, one of the suggestions I would have is look at all the different video platforms that are out right now, TikTok, Reels, and figure out how you could take something that's trending, something that's happening right now in the world, and visualize that in a way that only you can, and post that. and talk about the process and show people how you do it and teach other people the tools that you learn. Share incessantly. Like if there's a church that has a flyer and you could take that flyer and make it more visual, or make a video version of it, like do that, even if it's for free. And that's how you're going to put yourself in front of as many people as possible. So, I'll tell you right now, there's some TikTok influencers or creators that are just doing amazing work with editing using like mobile phone tools. And they just continue to put that content out day after day. And eventually they get called in to be advisors, not even so much as doing the technology, but even if it's just for them to talk about the creative process of how you create a concept from beginning to end. And I've seen a lot of people actually get into the place that they want to get into by actually just making themselves available. One of the things, as far as careers are concerned, like I said, I'm a practitioner, so I don't call myself a guru or an expert or anything like that. I stay in student mode all the time and I learn from people. And I just did a big project with a local charter school, a rebranding project, where I'm kind of learning more from the students than I'm actually teaching them, right? So I definitely suggest that you continue to put yourself in front of people. I do have some paid opportunities in my company, so you could feel free to reach out to me. And I have something specific that I'm thinking about, so I would love to see if we're a match. And I don't really do internships. And if I do internships with any schools, they're normally paid. I pay even though the school may have their own program on how they compensate the students. I just really believe in compensating artists for their time. So I'll definitely be able to do that. The other things, as far as the career track for social media, I just made myself available. I made myself a resource. I eliminated pain points in the community. So if there was a piece of information that was missing, for example, when Puerto Rico was going through Hurricane Maria, I used all my channels. I leveraged 250,000 people that follow me across all platforms. And I made sure that we raised money for the right organizations, that we informed people of what was happening. And I made myself present by actually traveling to the country and being available in person to be able to lend my expertise to people. And I'm fortunate that I had the financial abundance by coaching some of my high ticket clients that I was able to do that free. But that also creates opportunity, because that's when the city of New York calls me and says, we want you to be the COVID-19 guy. That's when Columbia University says, hey, we want you to be the personal development coach for all of our people at Teachers College. I'll be honest with you, I dropped out twice. I don't have a degree and I teach at Columbia. So anything is possible if you have the passion. And if you actually invest in yourself and you get the right mentors, surround yourself with people who are doing it. Like find other people that are doing visual graphics and become part of their communities, even if they're small. Like just completely throw yourself into that mix. And I promise you, you're going to find your home pretty soon.
I just want to add to that. I think that was great. Fantastic. I think one thing that George is right on is like finding things that people didn't notice as a solution to some kind of challenge that an organization has, because there's so many things that there's sometimes we just don't see the big picture in many situations, and visually it's really I'll tell you this, that when I create a campaign that I think is important for CUNY or for my organization, the first thing I try to think of is what's that like visual thing that's going to really hook people, because we're a visual species, we're a visual creature. We need to see things to be able to imagine how it works. And when you present to maybe your future employer or employees, you should, since you have that skill set already, really take advantage of that and show them things that they might have not even imagined or seen, and I think that's an exciting thing for many people.
And if I could just add, I'm sorry, there are also platforms that you could like hone your skills and actually make money. So Fiverr, Upwork are all places where you could put up your digital portfolio and people could hire you. And even though it's Fiverr, I mean, it started off as a $5 platform to get services. I mean, I've seen people make $2,000-$3,000 from a gig on Fiverr. So just don't discount those different exchanges or platforms that are available for small creators like you. to actually really grow and actually do stuff on a global basis. You'd be surprised at how many big Fortune 500 companies go in there to get quick stuff done because their budgets are limited. And, you know, somebody that has your skill set probably charges 10 times the amount, and they go in there and that's your way to get in the door. That's the way for them to engage you and say, hey, you know what, we really like the last 3 projects you did for us. You know, why don't you come in and be our in-house, you know, art director or our visual graphics director. There's local media companies that are just dying to get work. I mean, I'm telling you right now, I personally have a need for this. So I know that there's a lot of companies out there that are just getting started and actually doing more video that could definitely use your skill set. So, I mean, don't get discouraged. And I actually shared a number early on in the presentation in the chat, and that's specifically a platform that I have to kind of inspire creators to kind of reach out and build their audiences. So hopefully you'll make use of that and connect with me.
Awesome. So there was a mention of TikTok. So I want to TikTok. Sorry. So I want TikTok. So I want to go to that question from Denia, who's actually the social media intern for this project. She asked, now that TikTok is gaining such good grounds, are we incorporating that into the social media community? Is that becoming, you know, part of your campaigns?
Yeah, absolutely. TikTok for me, we're working on a bunch of stuff with TikTok because I like breaking the rules, right? So TikTok is very dance oriented, very fad oriented, you know, trends and whatever. I try to hijack trends. So I'll give you an example. I just did an internal conference for Keller Williams for a small group of people that work for Keller Williams, and they actually funded it themselves. It's not even Keller Williams programming. It's them saying, we want to learn more because they don't feel like they're getting what they need to get from this social media conversation. So we're having a conversation. I told them, I said, okay, so there's the Busset Challenge. And I don't know how many people are familiar with the Busset Challenge, but basically it's a girl that comes out and she's just kind of dancing and she's like regular hair up in a bun and whatever. And then she eventually drops down and she starts dancing, but she's like dressed up to the nines, right? So that's kind of the thing. So it's a little racy, it's a little bit provocative, but it was super popular. So I actually talked to a real estate agent and I convinced her to show off a house before they actually staged it. And the Busset Challenge, or her dropping down, the way the video goes, would be actually showing the house sold and using the same trending sound as the song to be able to illustrate that fact. And the reason why I did that is because a couple of things. The sounds is what drives TikTok engagement, right? It's the sound clips. By using a trending sound, she's getting visibility to a whole bunch of other people. Now, those people may not be interested in anything more than just the Busset Challenge, but amongst those people are people who are thriving professionals looking to buy their first home, etc. And they may just be attracted to the way she presented that particular piece of content and now start following her. And now she could go on TikTok and start having conversations about credit repair and how to like source your first home and how to get through the inspection and what the closing process looks like. Those little 10, 15, 30-second clips could really be informative and abbreviated and condensed in a way that could really provide a lot of value and just arouse just enough interest in people to engage you personally. So that's how we're using TikTok with our clients right now. Unfortunately, some of the best case studies I have for TikTok right now are actually under NDA, so I can't share yet. But I would say if you stay tuned to my community, a couple of those NDAs are expiring, and we have some really great white papers that we're going to put out to show some success with TikTok.
Yeah, for CUNY TikTok. Oh, okay. So it's funny that's funny about CUNY. So you got to check out CUNY's TikTok channel. I don't personally oversee it. We have a TikTok we have a lot of students who are our TikTok spokespeople, and they're really speaking to the generation that the new generation of TikTokers who are as George said, they're breaking kind of the traditional rules of communication and doing things that the younger generation, I think, is more engaged with. So check out our CUNY TikTok. What do I want to say about that? In terms of advertising, no, we're not doing any paid advertising at the moment. There is restrictions on working with TikTok because they are the Biden administration is reviewing whether government agencies can work or can pay TikTok because there's some issues around privacy and data and so on. So we're waiting for that to be resolved. And I think as soon as we start, we get the go ahead, we want to really see, test, experiment with TikTok as a platform for bringing in more students to CUNY.
And if I could just add to that real quick, when these new platforms come out, those of you who are actually in Robert's or my position, you're doing marketing already with a company, don't be afraid to reach out to the platform, because the platform usually has like a steel curtain that they let you behind, and they actually give you insight as to where the platform's heading. If they think that you're going to be a future advertiser or a future influencer or something of that nature. So I've noticed that the more platforms start arriving to the scene, the more open they are to have conversations one-on-one. I've personally spoken to the CEO of Clubhouse, which is a new audio platform. I've also had conversations with people at TikTok, and I'm starting to realize the power in actually just connecting with the people on LinkedIn that actually run these different marketing pillars at different social networks. So you could actually get a lot of insight, even as students. I think that if you as a student reach out to TikTok or whatever, they may have an amazing internship program for somebody like Shakay. That could be, that could be useful to you in the future. So don't be afraid to reach out to those people that are actually the influencers within the company that's actually creating the platform. Thank you, Luisa.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm like overwhelmed with information. I've been taking notes. I hope you guys have been taking notes as well. So much.
Can I come back to one thing that's important?
Please do.
I want to come back to writing and communication. All right. So one of the things, this is my my spiel, my gospel of advertising and marketing is there, and you can Google this. It's called the 60-30-10 rule in advertising. 60-30-10 rule. This was before the digital age. All of these marketers were trying to figure out, how do they get people to buy their products? What parts of their campaigns are most important to get them to take the action that they wanted to? And I think back in the day, when people would just advertise through mail, they would segment their mailing list, and they would test different things by sending some mail to certain groups and some mail to other groups, some messages from other groups and some messages to this group, and see which group was more likely to respond. So what's the 60-30-10 rule? 60. So when it comes to, we call it the response rate in advertising. Response rate just means what's the rate, or what's the percentage of people who see an ad, for example, and buy your product. That's a response rate. So 60% of your campaigns, the effectiveness of your campaign is based on the audience that you're getting in front of. That's kind of a no-brainer. It's important to remember, though, that when you first create a campaign, think about, how do you get in front of those audiences, who those people are, and what messages resonate with them. But 30% of your campaign's performance is affected by what we call the offer. The offer is always based on, like, the message. It's the message, it's the pitch, it's the offer, it's what makes your product stand out. Why should people care about it? What's the value that it offers them? And that's where really great writing comes into play. Being able to communicate why people should care is really important. So I think focusing on getting strong in terms of your writing strong in terms of thinking about the headlines that you want to write, thinking about the words that have a bigger influence on people. Like, we know the word free is like the most important word in when it comes to advertising and getting people to act. Or there's a lot of different words you can use that really excite people. 30% of your campaign is based on that offer, and then 10% of it is based on design, imagery. We could talk about a video or fonts or colors of backgrounds you use, stuff like that. So that's the breakdown of how campaign performance works. And I want to say writing getting really good at communicating the message. Video is going to get you in the door, and illustrations, beautiful illustrations are going to get you in the door. But at the end of the day, it's really the message of what makes your product unique that's going to serve you really, really well.
And I would say that that also is important for how you sell yourself, right? You know, that cover letter that you write to the jobs, it's the first thing people read. And as someone who's been on the other side, right, if I don't like it from the first couple lines, I'm like, move on, right? So, you know, that's a part of all things. George, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, definitely. Knowing if you're working as part of a collaborative team, knowing to use the right talent for the right things. Now, everybody's a great writer. It doesn't mean that you can't be part of a very successful collaborative social team. So just finding the right people. And if you're in business, if you're starting your business, don't be really honor the fact that there are professional people out there that are ready to do what you need to get done, and be okay with paying them to do the service. Don't be afraid of delegating. I know how to design websites, but I have to hire somebody to do it because I just don't want to deal with that. The ROI on my time doesn't really dictate that I should be dealing with code and CSS issues. So I pay somebody to do that for me, even though I'm able to do it myself, because I feel like I could go and actually create more opportunity and more value by bringing more money into the company, as opposed to dealing with tedious things like CSS issues.
So,
Can I add one more thing about the resume that you said? I really have a great story, quick story to tell about resume writing. I have a friend who's a recruiter at a recruiting agency, and he looked at my resume that I was sending out to places, and I've been employed for a while, and he said, wow, your resume is awful. It's brutal. I can never sell you to anyone. How did you even get like the job that you're in right now? And my initial reaction was, what? You're an asshole. Why are you telling, like, I'm in a good position. Like, what are you talking about? And I thought about it a little bit longer, and I thought, well, all right, this is a challenge. What can I do to make my resume better, and how can I fix it up a little bit? And I just totally deconstructed the whole thing. I listened to him because he's like, look, you're a marketer. Start thinking about marketing yourself. As Melissa said, like, you need to market yourself as a person, as an employee. I was like, all right, I'm going to go think totally marketing strategy on this. What are some of the language that I need to use? How do I get in front of, there's all of these now algorithms that Indeed and all of these places use to find specific people based on what words they use in their resume, all of that kind of stuff. So I went heavily into that, spent like days trying to figure out like what I could do to make it better, and how do I sell myself a little bit better. And he looked at it, he's like, he looked after all the changes I made, and took a long time, and he said, all right, this is great. And I wasn't sure if he was right or not, but as soon as I put all of this up on like LinkedIn and other places, I was just getting like contacted by so many different companies, like, oh my God, like you fit this role, that role, this role, and you've achieved this. And I'm like, oh, okay. So all I had to do was just play with the language a little bit, massage it, and you could have these like really positive impacts and responses from people. It's pretty insightful for me.
yeah, I've had actually a similar experience where I actually recently completely like threw away my CV and redid it. And it's like new world. Professor Carney, did you had your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, first, we only have a couple of minutes left, and I don't want us to overstay our welcome. And I want to thank you guys so much. George, first of all, thank you so much on the work that you do with Puerto Rico. It's just such an overlooked tragedy and an issue about what's happened after Maria there, that we had one student, one teacher, one professor who actually was in the hills of Puerto Rico and still did her online class by satellite phone, once a week, logging into Blackboard.
Wow.
So, and that kind of brings me to my other question related to the panel. One thing social media has that traditional media never had, and I think old farts like me in the old business of marketing and advertising don't understand and don't use properly, are the issues that social media have of interactivity and immediacy. Because in the past, marketing and advertising and promotion has always traveled at the speed of, at best, a television commercial. Now, social media gives you immediacy and it gives you interactivity. And we're just kind of learning how to play with those toys now. How do you suggest, like, our students and this particular project that we're working on, how can we use interactivity and immediacy to try and promote our projects and our things?
I'll let Robert answer first.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so I think I like the interactivity thing. I think is important because I think it feeds into what we call in advertising the call to action. What do we want the viewer to actually do from the video that they see? And I think depending on the goal of the campaign, I'm not 100% clear as to the project that you're working on right now, but I think if there's a way for them for the audience that you deliver the ad to actually somehow be a part of the campaign by, I don't know, whether it's like, you know, helping with communication or signing up for an email list or getting newsletter, more information about how to support what you're trying to do. I think those are really important things to think about when you build a campaign. That's how I would think about interacting it. If you're telling a very important message and there's some kind of thing action that another person can take, make that clear, make that easy for them to take that action. So when we build ad campaigns at CUNY and we want, say, our alumni to either become on our email list or become a donor, we make that call to action very clear. We say donate now, come to it. They click on the landing page. We don't put them through all of these steps to take to either donate or to subscribe to our email list. We don't like ask so many questions, because this goes into your point about immediacy, because people don't have so much time. So the more information that you want them to digest and also to give to you. People also don't like to give that much information to other people online because of privacy and data issues. The less of it you can make, the less asked is better. So I think that's how I would see it. For what I do is like call to action, figure out what you want them to do, and make those steps extremely simple.
Yep, I agree with everything he said, and I'm going to give you two quick case studies, right? The first one is a slacktivist approach, right? Slacktivist, combining somebody who believes that they're an activist, but they're slacking, right? For those that are not familiar with the term. When Black Lives Matter happened, there was a movement of people that had asked for people to black out their profile pictures on Instagram and other platforms to be able to stand in solidarity with Black Lives Matter. Unfortunately, doing that looks great in terms of the numbers of people that were doing it, but it had no real action behind it. There was no impact created by actually doing that. And then there was almost an online fight with organizations saying, no, instead support small Black-owned businesses. And that's where it kind of merged into, and the crowd just kind of went with that. But that's an example of slacktivism. I'll give you an example of and this is a campaign that I actually use and I have a white paper for online. I actually helped create the Latino Initiatives movement online on social media for the American Diabetes Association. We did a campaign called Por Tu Familia. And Por Tu Familia was basically a big fair, a big park event in St. Anne's Park in the Bronx, and where we had different clinics teaching people about diabetes and how to test and how to live with it, and and still have a healthy life, etc. And I basically just got a couple of people in the community to put hashtags up with different facts about diabetes, and they put these like hashtags up in the air, took pictures with it. And next thing you know, some of my friends who happen to be celebrities were also participating. Some of them actually dropped in at the festival and took pictures with fans and things of that nature. But there was an immediate effect because we started the festival not really knowing how many people would show up and not really understanding what the impact was. But it was amazing to see not only the numbers on social media as far as analytics and metrics and reach, but also to see how many people showed up and specifically pointed me out and said, hey, I saw you on Instagram talking about diabetes and I brought my uncle and my grandmother down. And that's the piece for me that actually shows how impactful you could be if you give people an immediate thing that they could do. Like Robert said, make it super simple for them to feel that rush that they feel when they feel like they've done something in the world and not be a slacktivist. To kind of go back to
I have
that.
one quick campaign example that I helped with. So there was a initiative about a legislative initiative in Washington State where an organization wanted support in terms of getting this bill passed. I won't go into the details of the bill, but they wanted to get Washington State citizens to contact their legislators to let them know that they should pass this bill. And they wanted to do an ad campaign on Facebook to make sure that everyone in Washington State knew this issue and they could actually take action from the ad itself. If they clicked on it, it would take them to a page. And on that page would be just really simple information about what the bill is and how, and how it would be. Thank you. And what the bill is and how it would change people's lives. And here's the genius of this landing page, though. It had a pre-filled form on it that was a message that you can send to your legislators. And the message was already written for the person. All you had to do was add your contact information and hit submit, and an email would be sent right away to the legislator from that person. So that's just a really simple way to like have change in the age of this, like, everyone's like in a rush kind of thing. And I think thinking about those kinds of tactics are really important, where all you have to do is hit a button and you've already sent an email from you to all of those legislators, people in power, saying what you want to accomplish or what you want them to do.
Thank you so much again to both of you and to Giada, who had to leave. I'll just thank her anyway. So I mean, I learned so much, and I'm just gonna put two little nuggets into our students' heads who are here and who are watching later, is that I wanna prompt you to think about and help, me and Denia, if you have any thoughts on this, about what is our call to action, right, for this project? What do we want people to do? Obviously, we want them to watch the video, the PSAs, but is there another step perhaps that we want people to take after that? What is that 30%? What does that offer? What is that message, right? If you guys can help articulate that important part, I'd love to hear your thoughts, any of your thoughts on that from your perspectives working on this project. Jim, do you have anything to add?
I don't have anything specific to add. The one thing I will say is that I will put my hand down because that's distracting. If anyone is watching this later and has any questions, they can reach out to me at I've simplified my email address because I know people in IT. It's just jcarney@lehman.cuny.edu. jcarney@lehman.cuny.edu, and I'll get back to you and give you follow-up information. I know, George, you posted some information there that I will try and tack on to the video portion of this for people to get in touch and find out more about you as well, if that's okay with you.
I was going to just say it.
No, go ahead, please say it, go ahead.
Call to action right now is if you think that you want to learn social media from an impact perspective, is to join my text community. Text #WEPA, which is like Eureka or Yahoo for those who don't speak Spanish, 917-708-5118. Learn more about engaging your community from a organic and holistic approach. Definitely want to help you build that audience that you're cultivating. So also follow me at Urban Jibaro at any platform that you want. TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, you name it. I'm there. I am the internet. I am the bridge. That's it.
Cool. Okay. And Melissa, I want to thank you for putting this panel together. And I'm going to get your permission because I want to share this with some of our marketing classes, if that's okay with you guys, because this is something that should be assigned in those classes as well. So thank you so much for doing this. And hopefully you'll become part of our long-term family here at Lehman's Journalism and Media Studies
Would love
project. So thank you so much, Robert. Thank you. Keep kicking butt on the CUNY level. I checked out the TikTok page, by the way. It's very cool.
Thank you.
And with that, I want to thank everybody. Brendan, you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, George and Robert and Jada for joining us today. The neat thing about this project is the students are getting access to all different types of skill sets and different avenues for them to explore. So this is awesome, and we really appreciate you joining us.
Okay.
Thank
With that, that will be the final word. So I want to thank everybody. I'm going to stop recording, and I will say have a great weekend. And we'll be back next week, same bat time, same bat channel with our next session. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you, you too.
Thanks.